Hello, hello. Welcome to tea time. It is Tuesday. I actually made it to tea time on Tuesday today. I have only been home for about a week now, and honestly, I'm still quite tired. I haven't quite switched over from European time back to my home time, but I'm working on it. To be perfectly honest, I was in a dead sleep and my alarm went off and I went, oh, that's right, I have tea time today. So I'm here. I had time to make a cup of tea. And I am walking out to the pasture to see the horses. And I'm really glad to be here with you all. Those of you who will be here in real time, thank you, Del. Glad you could join me. And I'm sure there will be a few people who are here to watch the recording later. Ocasio is right here. I've got the whole herd of 6 behind me. Z's to my left. And the other 4 are back behind Ocasio. Hello, Hannah. I'm glad you're here too. So today, I wanted to talk about something that, I don't even know how to dive into it. I feel like it's something that irritates me a little bit, so I tend to avoid talking about it. But now's as good a time as any. So this is, when do you walk away and when do you walk towards a horse? And there's so many different opinions about this that I talk about it a lot in person with people, but I often have avoided talking about it in this tea time format because I'm afraid to stir up a fight. So let's go ahead and just start with something that I heard that I think was absolutely brilliant this week. And that was this idea that conflict is fighting to be understood. Connection is fighting to understand. And I think this theory of when do we walk towards a horse, when do we walk away from a horse, it really bothers me because of this idea that a lot of horse trainers have where they really want the horse to understand the human. That is the job of most horse trainers. I'm coming from a different perspective. I want to show the horse that I understand them. Before I try and get them to understand me, I want to understand them. So this is something I need to think about in terms of communication. Horses don't speak English or German or French or Russian. They speak body language. And I don't buy into those theories that say we should pretend to have ears or a tail to communicate with them, because that would just be more of trying to get the horse to understand us. I want to build a foundation. Before I try and get the horse to understand the human, I want the horse to see that I understand them. No, I might not do it perfectly, but that is my goal. If I can fight for connection, fight for showing the horse that I understand who they are before I try and change them, that gives us a much better foundation for who we will become together. So out here, I'm out with all of my horses in the pasture and they're just being horses, eating grass. How would I decide when I'm going to walk towards them, when I'm going to walk away from them, when I'm going to walk around them? I have some idea by watching them. So the first thing I do when I get around horses is I walk around the space. Now, the argument that comes up with that is that seems a little predatory, Elsa. Seems like you might attack them if you're walking around the space. That all comes down to how you do it. It depends on when you pause. It depends on when you move. The thing is that the more distracting you are, the less you're like a predator. You might be irritating, but you're not a predator. The more distracting you are, the more they're going to pay attention, the less likely they would get attacked by anybody. The less distracting you are, the more you let them focus on their own feelings, on their own interpretations of the world through their 5 senses. So the way you walk around, being more distracting or less distracting, is going to influence how they think. So I'm not particularly distracting, but I'm not particularly non-distracting either. I'm just going to be myself as I walk around the space, and I'm going to watch how the horses act. Now, when they look towards me, their eyes are getting closer to me. And I know the eyes are usually followed by the neck, which might be followed by the body. So if they look towards me, that is potentially an invitation for me to walk towards them. Maybe. So we have to think about that a little bit. What do we know about this horse? Is this horse that's afraid of people? So if they've just been brave enough for the first time to look at a human, the last thing you want to do is get closer to them and scare them. But if they are not a horse that's afraid of people, you might want to take the hint that they'd like to get closer before they actually have to go to the effort to move their whole body towards you. So really what this comes down to is knowing your horse well enough to know what's going to happen next. If your horse is going to run away from you next, if you can run away first, you show them that you understand who they are, what they feel, and what their tendencies are. If your horse, if you know that your horse is going to march over to you and check all of your pockets, if you go over to them and stroke them and rub them all over before they get a chance to do it to you, you're just showing them that you know what happens next. So knowing who they are becomes a really important part of when do you walk towards them, when do you walk away. And I get most of this information by starting out, yes, Zoe, just by walking around the space. It's a soft beginning to the conversation. That way I get to see how they're interacting with their friends. Are they standing off alone and separate from their friends? Are they really close to their friends? Are they seeking a lot of touch from their friends? Are they seeking a lot of distance from their friends? This tells me a little bit about what they might want from me. And then I can work from that basis. Now, from there, I'm going to see if I can tell from their eyes, from their ears, from their nose, from the way they hold their body, what are they likely to do next? If I can do it at the same time as them or before them, they're going to feel like I really understand them. This isn't about getting the horse to do something for me or getting the horse to behave in a certain way. So one argument I get is Elsa says that you should walk towards a horse when they walk towards you. A lot of people say, no, I just want to stand still when they come towards me. Well, that has validity, because if you just stand still, you are being about as non-distracting as possible. So when you stand still, you are really letting them fully feel all of their own internal feelings, all of their own sensory experience. So there is a time for just standing still and letting them walk towards you. But it doesn't tell them that you understand them. All it does is say that you don't want to distract them from how they feel, which might be true. So what about walking away? When do you walk away from a horse? Well, if they look away or pull away with their body, that's a pretty obvious indication that they would like you to pull away, unless they do it so slowly and gently that they pull you with them. Now, I have a really, really clear definition of that. If I don't have to change position, then I'm invited with them. So if I was exactly 10 feet from their hip on the left side, as we walk together, I shouldn't vary more than between 9 and 12 feet from their hip on the left side. If I start drifting a lot farther back or getting a lot farther forward, I wasn't invited to go with them. They actually wanted a change. They wanted me farther to the front, they wanted me farther to the back, they wanted me farther away, or they wanted me closer. Those are things that I should get to know about my horse. If I can show them who I think they are, they'll constantly correct me. They'll constantly tell me if I'm right or wrong. But it's that effort, the fighting for understanding another is what builds connection. So to call it a fight is maybe a little bit strong, but I want a little bit of energy there to say that the horses, what they feel, what they think, what they want, that is important to me. And if they want me to be closer to them, I want to be closer to them. If they want me to be farther away, I want to be farther away. Now, what happens if you have a horse that wants to be farther away and you really want to be close to them? Well, now we've got a different thing going on. Okay, so if you're trying to get close to the horse and they really don't want you close, now we're into a training problem, which this is a conflict. A conflict is I want my point of view to be understood more than I want to understand your point of view. And that's what a lot of horse training turns into, is solving conflicts. Okay, the human wants one thing, the horse wants another thing. The human wants to be understood more than they want to understand the horse. And I do think there's a time and a place for that. But I'd love it if everybody could invest 5 or 10 minutes into really understanding the horse before they start asking the horse to understand them. So the first thing you do when you walk into the barn, if you walk in and you expect your horse to cater to your every human need from the moment you enter, that's a pretty one-sided relationship. If you could take some time and show them that you understand them before you ask them to understand you, I think you would find there was a whole lot more connection in the relationship. So what about when horses look at something other than you? Let's say they're looking towards the barn. You're out in the pasture and they look towards the barn. Should you walk towards them? Should you walk away from them? It really depends on how well you know the horse. Okay, a safe bet is to step towards what they're looking at. So if they're looking at the barn, you go look at the barn too. Show with your whole body that you are also interested in the barn. It could be the barn, it could be the gate, it could be another horse. Show them you know what they're thinking about. This is really important to me. Now, as I said earlier, if you want them to just really soak in all of their own emotional feelings, and you want them to feel everything they're feeling and sense everything they're sensing and not get in the way of that, you might choose not to make any response at all. And this is what we do in a good human conversation too. So in a good human conversation, there's a time for me to say, yeah, I get it. And there's a time for me to just be quiet and listen. And it's going to be the same thing with your body movements. So when your horse is in a deep experiential moment and they're feeling really good things, it's a time to just be quiet. Let them experience it. Don't distract them from it. If you feel like it's a time where they really are seeking connection and a partner, show them how much you understand them by stepping in the direction they're interested. So if they're interested in you, they're probably interested in getting closer. If they're interested in looking away from you, they're either interested in you both stepping towards that thing, or they're interested in you getting farther away from them. So you have to get a little bit discerning here. Are they pulling away from you, or are they just looking over towards the barn because the barn is interesting? If they're just looking towards the barn because the barn is interesting, step in the direction of the barn. They're not trying to get rid of you. If they are, don't worry, they'll make it clearer. So if you misunderstand, they will use their whole body to make it clearer that you misunderstood. And then you learn. And that's okay. Yay, Luce, I'm glad you're here from Australia. I've been seeing your posts. Looks absolutely beautiful. I can't wait to be there also in November. Let's see, I've got to scroll up a little bit. Catherine says, this is a great topic. It is. This is one that, as I said, I've talked about a lot at clinics. I don't talk about it very often in this social media place because I feel like it might create an argument. But here goes. Hannah says, it's so hard when your personality wants to be close to your horse all the time. Yeah. And so, Hannah, that's the thing, is that there will be a time when you say, you know, I really want to be understood. Like my needs, my desire to be close to you are more important than your desire to be far away from me. There is a time and a place where we ask our horses to compromise a little bit. but probably the first moments when you see them is not that time. And so if we can start this conversation out a little bit gently, we start, walk around the space, check your water trough, see if anything needs to be cleaned up, look at your fences, just check the space a little bit and notice how the horses are living and interacting with each other. Then look for a time and a place where you can show them how well you understand them. And you're going to do this one at a time. You can't show the whole herd you understand them. You're going to pick a horse to respond to for a while. And then you can switch whenever you want. Think of it like a busy coffee shop where you might talk to one friend and then you switch to talking to another friend. Just try and make it graceful. Try not to leave anybody with a bad taste in their mouth. Let them feel understood by you before you switch to talking to someone else. Now, the same thing goes for when do you end a session? When do you walk away? I don't believe that horses have a goodbye strategy. It's not very natural to them. They would live with their friends 24/7 and never leave each other. So the really human desire to want to go and say goodbye and make a point of it, I find often really leaves horses a bit confused and sad. Because if you're doing things that help them feel understood by you, they're not going to want you to leave. And so this is something that is really, really hard for people. But I encourage people, when you leave for the day, just slip out the back door. Good old Irish goodbye. Don't make a big deal out of it. Leave them ruminating and thinking and feeling all the wonderful things that have happened today and that they can look forward to tomorrow. If you draw a lot of attention to the fact that you are leaving, I don't think that that's a thing that makes your horse feel very understood unless they really don't like you. So it could be if you've been really, really difficult and really irritating to your horse all day and you say, okay, now I'm leaving, they think, thank God she's going. But I hope you're not that person. In general, I would encourage you to be the kind of person that your horse really enjoys being around. And then when you're gone, they'll turn their thoughts to other things. They have their other friends, hopefully. They have a whole life that is good other than you. But then you'll be back. You'll be back. You'll show them you understand them again. And there may be parts of the relationship where you sort through some conflict. Okay, you say, this is what I would like as a human. Can you do this for me? And I think that's incredibly healthy and beautiful. But it needs to be from a foundation of connection. And connection is fighting to understand your horse and show them how much you understand them, not how much you want them to understand you. So to put it in a nutshell here, what I'm trying to say is when you walk towards your horse and when you walk away from your horse is incredibly powerful, because this is your essential body language, much more than the flip of a tail or the pin of an ear. We don't have tails or ears, and I think that it's pretty funny when people try and pretend they do. But we do have basic locomotion. Are we getting closer together? Are we getting farther apart? And these basic body movements are really going to speak volumes to the horse when you choose to do them and when you choose not to do them. One thing that I haven't talked about is how it's really okay to do anything when your horse is giving you no information at all. So let's say they're just eating grass, as Z is here behind me. They're just eating the grass right in front of their front feet. There's no information there for me to get anything from. I don't know that he wants anything other than the food he's eating. So I could walk up to him, I could walk away from him, I could walk around him. The key is in the moment he changes. So when he goes from eating to looking up at the pasture far away, I might stop and look at the pasture far away with him. That tells him I understand him. I am fighting to connect with him, There's no conflict between us. I'm not fighting to be understood. I'm fighting to understand him. And fight is a strong word, I know. But it gets the feeling across, is where is your energy going? What are you putting effort into? So, let's see, I've got a few more comments here. Christian says, I'm not allowed to speak with other horse friends. My horse needs the attention. And that may be what you've worked out with him. You know, everybody's relationship is a little different. I will leave that up to you guys to sort out. I have 6 horses in my herd. I have 4 that I work with regularly. The other 2 are my daughters. And they're all pretty good at sharing my attention. But they do get pretty clever in learning how to attract my attention and pull me into a conversation, which I like. Zulin Zhang says, it's really amazing what we can pick up from them when we really focus with our minds and eyes wide open. And one moment of understanding can then lead more easily to more and more as they learn to trust us. Yes. So what I'm talking about is building a foundation of trust and connection that you can then build on. And the stronger that foundation of trust and connection is, the more you'll be able to use conflict in good ways. Conflict isn't wrong or bad. It just needs a very strong foundation underneath it before you build difficulties into the relationship. And I do believe difficulties are necessary in a relationship, but they're not more necessary than the foundation of connection. And so that's where we have to put our attention first. Anne says, great topic. Thank you for sharing your insights. Yeah. For all of you who feel like you have to stand still when your horse walks to you because you're afraid of scaring them away, that is valid if your horse is a horse that will be scared away by you walking towards them. For everybody who feels like they have to back up to encourage their horse to walk towards them, that's valid from your perspective. But those are not things that you're doing to show the horse you understand them, unless you really know there is no other option. In which case, well, I would hope that you start to broaden your horizons a little bit about things that you could do. I would like to be able to stand still as my horse approaches me, or walk towards them as they approach me. One of them is very participatory. My horse wants to get closer to me. I want to get closer to them. We're doing it together. The other is very passive. I'm going to be as non-distracting as possible while they come towards me. I might even pull away from them as they come towards me if I want to speed them up. If they want to get towards me, I'm going to play a little hard to get and pull away so that they have to work harder to get to me. But that's where we get more into the human needs surpassing the horse's desire to be understood. And there's a time and a place for that. But I want you to think about, is it the right time and place for your horse? And what do you know about them? If you take action and they make it really obvious with their body that you were wrong, that's okay. Now you know more. Zoe says, I work with horses who have not experienced safe relationship, and the healing that arrives just in me noticing their body language and enacting what I feel they need. Step back, walk away, look at where they're looking, breathe and regulate myself, and check back in with them. It's so incredible to allow their voices to be heard and the way they express the acknowledgement. That's absolutely beautiful. For any of you who don't get a chance to experience this the way Zoe does, know that any horse would love to have this conversation with you. It's not just the ones that haven't experienced a safe connection. All of them would like to be understood by you. And you can do that with your body movements. Walk towards the things they're interested in. Pull away before they want to pull away. And that goes for when you take a break to go get a drink of water. That goes for when you end a session. So find a moment where they're really enjoying all of their own sensory experience, and then pull away to go get a drink of water or pull away to end the session. That's a really good place to leave them, just ruminating on how great that time was with you. So I hope those are some good thoughts for today. I will be back again for tea time next Tuesday. For now, I'm going to go play with my horses, and I hope that leads to good thoughts in all of you, and let me know if there's any questions that come up around this.